Okay, so we are here in the mangroves of Al-Dakhira in Qatar. It's very interesting already to have trees, natural trees that can grow in this harsh environment in the desert. The problem of Qatar, it's a very arid country, not much of rain, so that's why it's desert. But if we have trees that are able to survive in saltwater environment, so in saltwater which is not, we don't have lack of salt water here, Qatar is also surrounded by the sea, then it's something amazing. And already having a tree that can get up to 3 meters of height, it's something amazing. And this tree is extremely important for the global environment of Qatar for so many reasons. But before we talk about this, let's talk about this tree itself and how this tree is able to cope with its environment, with the heat, especially the heat. We're talking about the hottest open sea in the world, talking about the Gulf, the Arabian Gulf. Second is one of the saltiest among the open seas, nearly 50 grams of salt per liter. So these are two of the main conditions that are that can be a problem for plant growth. Plus we have the tides. So this tree is just amazing in a way that can survive all into these conditions. Now the first thing, of course, to be able to survive in the salt, this tree needs to get rid of it. So when we get close to the tree, it's, by the way, called Avicennia marina. So the species is Avicennia marina. These are species that grow generally in tropical areas, but and even to subtropical areas. Only one species is able to make it in the Arabian Gulf and especially in Qatar as well. So it's called Avicennia marina. We call it the grey mangrove as well. So as you can see, I was talking about the adaptation to salt environment. So you can see the crystals of salt that are growing. Very visible, and they become more visible when it gets hotter. So all the way to April, May, June, July, August, September, when it's super hot in Qatar, over 45 to 50 degrees, especially at noon. So this tree is actually pumping the seawater and getting rid of the salt through the leaves. So this is a natural desalination. It's something amazing. If all the trees are able to do it, then we can turn the desert really into a big forest. But only this tree, almost only this mangrove tree, is able to do it. So this is the first thing, or the first, let's say, adaptation to this harsh environment, getting rid of the salt. Now second thing, as you can see down here, so we have a lot of algae. So these algae are not very good for this tree because they are covering these sticks. I'm going to talk about these sticks. So the sticks that you are looking at here are called pneumatophores. Here's the story of it. So now we have a low tide, so the water is low, we don't have water here, but after 6 to 8 hours we'll be getting a higher tide. We have 2 high tides here and 2 low tides per day, per roughly 24 hours. So when we have the water to this level, the roots, which are of course underground, will not be able to breathe, because the roots, they need oxygen, and like the rest of the tree, needs carbon dioxide and water and all the nutrients and the sunlight to be able to make the food. So right now the roots are getting the air or the oxygen through these pneumatophores, through these sticks that plays the role exactly as a snorkel, like a snorkel. So you may say that you are looking at roots doing snorkeling right now. So the air is going through those snorkels, goes to the root. The root will use part of them directly, like right away, and will store another part. Now when we have a high tide, the water will be even over these snorkels, the pneumatophores, so the roots can use the air stored about 6 hours ago when it was a low tide, until the next low tide again, to refuel and keep going like this. So this is how this tree is coping with the low oxygen environment in the tidal zone. This is called the intertidal zone, when we go from the high tide to the low tide over there. So this is where the mangroves grow. So that is the second adaptation. So adaptation against first against the salt, and the second one is adaptation against the low oxygen environment. Now these trees, because they are able to survive in this environment, so they are going to produce food in their leaves. So when they produce food out of carbon dioxide, out of sunlight and nutrients and water, so they get the food from themselves that was supposed to be for themselves, of course. But with the fallen leaves will be food for the rest of the animals that grow here. As I can see here, we can show you some of the hermit crabs, a lot of them actually. So a lot of crustaceans, a lot of fish, small fish, big fish, a lot of crabs. So the starting point is the fallen leaf. So the fallen leaf is full of food made by the same tree. The crabs will eat it, the hermit crabs will eat it, and those hermit crabs and crabs will be food for the small fish, and the small fish will be food for big fish. And we have what we call a food chain all the way to the birds. We can see today probably it's not easy to see, it's daytime, but by sunset we can see a lot of birds like herons and egrets and cormorants and even flamingos. So we end up with the fact that this tree, it's able to survive in this environment. Therefore it's creating a habitat to sustain marine life. So it's sustaining herself, of course, and sustain marine life. So providing food, as we were talking about, through photosynthesis, through their leaves, and providing habitat. So all these pneumatophores and under the trees, this is probably the greatest place for fish to lay their eggs, the adult fish, and all the other animals to live in a safe spot. So a habitat and food, to provide the food. So it's so important to protect this environment in Qatar, because we don't have much of these mangroves in Qatar already, only about 700 hectares here and a bunch of 150 hectares surrounding all over Qatar. That's about a maximum of 1,000 hectares. That's not much, but the marine life that are sustaining is sustaining actually fishermen in a city like Al Khor or Al Dakhira. So sustaining people, fisheries, and protecting the coasts against erosion. This is one of the main issues that we have here. So we can have constructions, we can have cities there, just because these mangroves are keeping the soil and protecting the coastline against erosion, of course, into getting away all the pollution coming from the industrial areas around here, and a lot of other benefits. So these are probably one aspect of it.